Welcome to the Business of Hearing podcast, the podcast for high-performing hearing care clinics that want to learn the strategies, ideas, and truths behind some of the smartest private practice clinics in the world. Now, time for your hosts, Phil M. Jones and Ollie Luke.
Hello, and we are here again with the Business of Hearing podcast. And today I'm joined by a dear friend of mine, possibly the most talented photographer on the planet, Mr. John DeMato. John, welcome to the show.
Mr. Jones, always a pleasure to see your handsome face.
So why on earth do I rope a photographer in to come and talk to leaders and owners of hearing care practices? What on earth can a photographer teach us about how to be more effective in communicating our message to help people understand why to choose us as opposed to people like us? John, why do you think I brought you to the show?
I think you brought me to the show because you, of all people, understand the value and the importance of visual storytelling in order to get an audience excited about you, to illustrate your expertise, to be able to connect with people beyond the work through the image content, and how those photos visually punctuate the sentiments of every single story you want to tell.
Okay. John, you and I have grown up in this area of building personal brands, of putting people into the experience of services so people can connect truly with other individuals, right? That's something that you and I have grown up upon, and the importance of being able to tell the truth through storytelling in whatever means is something that helps some brands stand out and shine and others fall into the doldrums. Have some fun with me for a second. Let's go one at a time, see if we can spar on this. What are things that you see in people's marketing content that are using images in a way that are sabotaging their brand? Let's see how many we can get on these. You start with one, then I'll do one, you do another, and let's see what we can come up with.
Okay. Fake smiles.
What's a fake smile?
Don't get me started. We're already on the first one.
Come on, what's the fake smile? Because I think we've all been there, right, with the wedding smile, or like everybody say cheese. Like, but What's a fake smile?
A fake smile is when you are flashing the muscles in your mouth up with no sentiment or real emotion or genuine kind of feeling about being actually happy. Okay. Basically, you're lying.
And we see this show up all the time in people's meet the team photographs on websites, right? Or somebody's headshot is like gray background, weird thing going on. Like
arms are generally folded and you're looking like this and you go, it's just like, I don't understand why people think that works. You're better off just staring into the camera and not doing anything rather than doing that. But
so fake smiles is one. Let me add one into the mix. It's just use of stock imagery for any purpose whatsoever. You know, you've been on a stock site, and in the hearing care industry, my absolute favorite is the old couple on the beach, holding hands, romantically capturing the sounds of the waves, right? That's almost my go-to in a hearing care website that I stumble across. I'm like, oh, you let somebody do that to you? So what are your thoughts on stock photography?
Well, first of all, you've used the S word in more than once within 5 minutes, and already my blood is boiling. So aside from that, I'm going to put that to the side, and I'm going to point out the fact that stock photos are for people who don't have the imagination to understand and realize the importance of actually placing your people, your clients, and the things that you do for them front and center in the photos that you do, because that is what people care about. They don't care about some generic photo that 20 other people are using.
So we got fake smiles, stock photos. What you got next?
I would say, I mentioned the arms folded before, but then I think one of the other ones that probably drives me insane is the ones where people intentionally break the fourth wall for no reason. And what I'm thinking here would be they're in front of a piece of equipment, typically a laptop. They'll have a coffee cup in their hand. And instead of actually typing on the computer, what they're doing is, hey, I'm looking into the camera. I have my hand on the computer as if I'm actually typing something, and I'm holding a cup of coffee because I'm amazing and I multitask.
Okay.
And those drive me crazy.
So this is, instead of an image of showing a version of the truth, this is an image that is showing somebody staging themselves doing a version of what could be the truth, therefore it's a lie.
Exactly. And what they're missing out on is the fact that the emotional resonance that you could create with a photo, where if you're simply in action doing the thing that you're doing and the camera acts as a fly on the wall, capturing that moment, that allows your audience to actually step into that moment and visualize what it would actually look like if they were in the room with you doing whatever service or whatever type of help that you're providing as the expert that you are in that moment.
Okay. So this probably leads to my next one, which is really just a failure to use the opportunity to show but don't tell. And I see this lack of images being used through the majority of this industry's communications. Like web pages just full of copy, like a location page that doesn't include a picture of the building or images of what it looks like when you're inside the building, or a page of copy that says, we have thousands of delighted patients, but not a single photograph of a patient. Or, we take extra attention to all of the high-level testing equipment that we've invested in, or our staff work with precision and care. And we make these statements with words and we fail to back them up with images.
Yes.
And I see this everywhere, and it just feels like a giant wasted opportunity. This show don't tell being missing. What's your take there?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what we're talking about here is an opportunity to merge the visual with the written word or the spoken word and bring them together to create a very impactful piece of content, or to strengthen the attention that your website could create if you created a cohesive message that allows people who come to that page or go to that social page to actually get a sense of what these people do and how they can help them. And when you demystify the process, it makes the points of friction a lot less for them to visualize this. So they definitely are missing out on a lot of it, for sure.
Okay. So we've got some big things there, right? We've got fake smiles, we've got stock imagery, we've got, this inability to be able to actually connect through showing somebody what you're doing, and this breaking the fourth wall. We've got this inability to punctuate written word with visual images alongside it. What else exists as a pet peeve that we see people either self-sabotaging or failing to use imagery in a way that is advantageous to their brand?
Yeah, Phil, one of the biggest ones that drives me nuts is this insistence on vanity and not thinking about value. People are so focused on capturing these quote unquote perfect images, these wonderful scenarios in their life, and everything has to be really well put in place. But what they're missing out on is the fact that, yes, the photos need to look good. If they're not flattering, you're not going to use them. But if they're not revealing, if they're not inspiring, if they're not relatable, if they're not flexible with respect to being able to use it on a bunch of different platforms throughout your online presence, you're dealing with a photo that has no inherent value other than you looking good. And the stories that everybody shares, regardless of whatever the industry is, you're not always sharing stories where those photos are going to resonate with the words. You're missing out on a huge opportunity to be able to really put together a comprehensive illustration of who you are, who you serve, and why you do what you do.
Gotcha. So we've talked about this over a drink or two on numerous occasions, right? It's this not look at me content, it's come with me content. It's trying to create something that takes the viewer on this into your world and along for the ride, as opposed to, hey, look at me, I'm awesome. It's a snapshot, it's a Polaroid, it's a one-time thing. Is we want to create movement through image, but movement of the imagination as opposed to physical movement.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things about the look at me and come with me is that there is a deep insistence on the look at me, look at me, look at me. And here's the thing. If you sprinkle that in, and if you position that photo in a way that adds value in some shape or form to those that are in your audience, whether it's just an acknowledgement of what you do or some kind of a lesson there, to kind of soften the, hey, I'm awesome vibe, then it's valuable. But not shot after story after post, because it becomes noise. And then people get irritated at that, because now you're just boasting all the time. And what's in it for them? What do they care about? They're going to tune you out.
Okay. So I'm going to put you on the spot. You don't know hearing care well. I know you've worked in a number of other healthcare industries to be able to help people shine and stand out. I'm going to see if we can do some sort of real-time consulting of what type of images should people be looking for? What should they be able to put into place? So I'm going to present you with a problem. You're going to prove to us how we might be able to solve this by, or certainly positively contribute towards this problem through the use of more intelligent images. Okay. And the first problem I'm going to pose you is that almost every hearing care practice that I've ever communicating with, when I push them to say, what is it that makes you different from your competition? Here's what everyone says. Well, it's our service. Our service makes us different. And that is a complete sentence. And they fail to take that any further, right? We do a lot of work to try and say, let's get to the line items within your service promise that truly makes you different. But how do you take that problem and take the show, don't tell approach that we talked about earlier, the come with me as opposed to look at me thinking? And how could a practice use imagery to prove that their service is different, AKA better, than somebody else they're competing against?
Well, right off the bat, when you say service, that has obviously several components to it, many of which I'm not 100% familiar with.
You can push back at me if you need to.
I would say, right off the bat, what does it look like when they walk through the front door? Who are they greeted with? What does that look like? And not what just does that look like, but what does that look like from 27 million different angles? And And then we would explore that through a lot of candid lifestyle portraits with clients or patients coming in, and then have the front receptionist there. Then we need to see, what does it look like when we're talking to the doctors? What does that consultation look like? What are involved there? Are there any tools? Are there any kind of, what does the checkup look like? Right. And then we get into the actual service look like? And then we get into that stuff. What are the elements involved there? And what kind of things can we photograph to highlight those things? So the different hearing aids and whatever other technology is involved in the industry, we would parse that out, get some stuff alone by itself, as well as in conjunction with the doctor working with the patient. And then we would then get into some other, obviously we would want to see the space being leveraged by all the employees with the patients in the space, because again, demystify the process, show the people how the sausage is made. It allows them to visualize themselves in that space. And that's how we would approach it. And I'd probably ask another 40 questions before we would even pick up the camera.
But you're looking at saying, well, if the service is different, let's show this from as many points as possible, from even before they arrive inside the practice. What does the welcome look like? What does the smile of the front desk look like? What are they dealing with in terms of the environment? What do other people look like whilst they're waiting or being treated? How does somebody get to see that this didn't hurt somebody else, so therefore it's possibly not going to hurt me? How does the doctor look like they are in a consultation? What does the room look like? What does the testing equipment look like? How big is a hearing aid in relation to a fingertip or an ear, or like all of that, but in real life?
Yeah. And preferably with smiles.
Yeah, real ones, not fake ones. Okay.
Exactly.
And I'm going to push this even one stage further, right? Is in hearing care, particularly at private practice, the point where most private practices excel is like after the treatment. So as in, they've fitted them with hearing devices, they've taken great care of these people have had a couple of follow-up visits, they're doing better. But nobody wanted hearing aids to wear comfortably in a clinic. They wanted hearing aids so they could hear more comfortably in their life. So there's chance to be able to document these patients in their natural environment as a result of almost a before and after in showing people happily around a dining table, showing people happily enjoying their life, but real people with honesty and authenticity to it, if catching people living their lifestyle with the help and aid of the treatment plans they got through a hearing care practice, I think would be magical photography that nobody else has.
Well, what it would basically do is eliminate all those crappy stock photos of people walking on the beach, and we'd get some real legitimate joy in people's faces. And
Right.
then when you match that to the words of that joy of how they actually can live their life and show up in the world the way they want, because they can hear, well, I mean, we need to see that. We need to read it. You bring that stuff together and it creates a lot of wonderful opportunities to show the other end of the process and what the result is, what the promise
Yeah.
of what these practitioners offer with their services and products.
The world is screaming right now that the majority of content to be consumed in our immediate future online is to be in the form of video. Right? This is what we are being preached at. This is what marketeers are hearing from every angle. And the whole world is getting so excited about video. Knowing that you capture still images as opposed to moving images, and knowing that I'm very much on the same page as you, explain why you think the photographic still images are as important, if not more important, than video.
Because they're easily consumable. Because you're going to form an opinion looking at a photo in less than 7 seconds, whereas you need to invest your time in a video. Now, that's not to say that video is not important. Video has a different aspect, or has a different value within the whole sharing content with your audience. But photos give you that quick zing, that pop, and again, when paired correctly with the right type of story, it really sends a lot of positive vibes and gives people that opportunity to kind of, ooh, this is interesting. Let me check this out a little bit more. You know, the one thing that I always say to my clients is that a photo is never going to inspire someone to sign on the dotted line, but it's going to inspire them to pick up the pen. And that's what we're going for with image content.
Okay. So you can look at all of those critical touch points that exist within a patient experience and say, how do I provide a convincing photo here that adds story math to the decision-making process to mean that the decision I'm being asked to make stacks up more so because I feel right about this, because it makes sense and it feels right. It's like the whole emotive story coming together with the logical side of the argument that says, these are my people.
Yeah. Yeah, and preferably with a photo. I mean, at the end of the day, the other piece to your image content is if it has a lot of artistry to it and it's high level and it feels really good and it's well placed, it's going to inspire people to stop the scroll in the first place. That's the other thing.
So let's take a normal business that's got 7 employees, that is open 7 days a week, that has 2 locations, that has a few hundred delighted patients, that is largely pretty busy. How many photographs do they need to be able to effectively punctuate their marketing?
Depends upon how long they want to run a campaign for, but right off the bat, we're talking, you know, you're going to need a nice pile, because first off the bat, we need to look at all the foundational elements across your online presence. So that's your website, that's all your professional membership pages, that's all the socials. So, you know, that's a dozen photos at least right there with cover pages and highlighted photos and profile pictures. So there's that. And then when we get into social, that's when it varies, because if we're talking every day, multiple times a day, maybe 4 or 5 times a week, whatever the case is, you need fresh stuff for that. And not only do you need fresh stuff, but it has to be diverse and versatile. We need wide shots, medium shots, close-ups, not the same shot from the same vantage point in the same outfit over and over again, because that's going to tune people out. So there has to be a lot of thought into, you know, what exactly the heavy lifting for your content schedule is. And then we shoot the appropriate amount of photos to give you those opportunities.
Okay. And why do you need a professional photographer to do this? Or do you need a professional photographer to do this? Or is it just somebody with a decent camera? Can you do this on your iPhone? What's the deal?
Sure. Yeah, you can do it. I mean, it's the same idea for, you know, with any specialist. You could always hire someone else, or you can hire the person that's going to come in and give you the type of service that you need. One of the reasons why a professional photographer that specializes in lifestyle photography for businesses is important is because they have the fundamental understanding that they are not just a button pusher. They're not a camera monkey commodity. They're a marketer. They're a visual storytelling creative director. Someone very smart mentioned that to me once. And the reality is you need someone behind the camera that is thinking 2 steps beyond that actual photo. Where is this going to go? How do I need to photograph these images in order to have it basically slide right in, because there's going to be text incorporated. It's going to become a graphic, or we're going to be pushing out a bunch of stories related to this particular topic, and we need these kinds of shots, a lot of them. So you want someone that's behind the camera that has a fundamental understanding of where you are with your marketing, where you want to bring it, and how to get there.
Okay. And let's lean into that a little further. Is I'm going to play one end as the top end out of this. Like, I am sold on the importance of visual storytelling and having great imagery. And I'm going to put, my money where my mouth is and tell the world right now that personally, I spend circa $20,000 a year on capturing high quality imagery for my personal brand, my business, to be able to tell story online from a social point of view. That's the level of importance. And I'd also go as far to say that investment from a marketing dollars point of view is still probably the greatest ROI investment that I bring towards my marketing, because it's final mile stuff. That's where it shows up to me. It's in that, is it you or somebody like you? And in that final mile, the image can be enough to be able to say, more often than not, it lands my side of the fence. So if I say that I'm at the top end of premium brand from an expense point of view, where are the tiers below this? Like, let's go from bottom up. Like, if you're serious about saying you want to up your image game and you've got, a very limited budget, where and how would you spend it? How do you focus on this to say that you can up your image quality at the bottom? And then maybe let's do 2 more tiers in between. How do we educate business owners on how they can make progress on this regardless of where they have budget?
The first step is to identify what the priorities are. Once you understand exactly what the first step is, once you have your plan in place for how you want to invest in image content, then that will help give you the opportunity to be able to perhaps find a photographer that has kind of an entry level, not entry level, but more of the emerging level of people where basically what you're going to get is enough of image content that's going to completely refresh the website, change all the profiles and all the social stuff, and give you new photo ammunition when you're promoting yourself through podcasts or other media opportunities.
What I often look for here, John, is if somebody has limited budget, but they still want a professional standard, is quite often I push them not to a commercial photographer, but to, for example, like an aspiring wedding or an events photographer that can capture that reportage type style of what's happening and give that individual 2, 3, 4 days of moments that they can capture the moments that are happening in real world. And arguably, you might save some money doing that. You're also probably going to spend more time in what it takes to both direct and capture those images. And more importantly, spend a chunk more time in editing the quantity of photographs that you end up with as a result of that exercise. Because you'd get a lot, but you'd get some good stuff. But it might take 4 or 5 attempts, and you might end up with 7,000 photographs that need to be culled down to the 250 that you actually have that are useful. Would that be fair?
Yeah. And the other thing with working with a non-lifestyle portrait business photographer specialist is that you're going to get the eye of a wedding photographer. Now, the good news with that is that they're used to shooting candid. So that'll help on a lot of respects, but their eye isn't quite centered on the close-ups and on the medium. They get the scene. And so at the end of the day, what'll end up happening is, you'll get some good stuff, but as you said, you're going to have to work really hard to find it, and it's not going to be as much as you'd like. Right.
And you might have to give more of your time to coordinating, directing, and culling, plus still end up with a 6 out of 10 product at the end.
Well, the other problem with that is that presupposes that the people who are directing know exactly what they need.
Sure, which is probably the business owner that is directing from maybe like a shot list that somebody like us could provide for them, but still it's the blind leading the blind, yet still it's a notch above almost everybody else already, just on the basis that you're thinking about it and you're bringing in a unique piece of talent. And if you take that wedding photographer market, is price priming that, is is you might be able to find somebody who'll work midweek for you for a few $100 a day to be able to shoot, you know, for a couple of hours, 3 hours, etc. Do that on multiple occasions, and then, you know, the time invested in that you might be able to build a stock library that way around, right? And that's probably better than you lining up every one of your employees and shooting them on their iPhone and you know, using stock for photography. It's a big elevation from there.
It is. And at the end of the day, it is, well, you just said it. I mean, the fact is anything beats stock at this point. So at least if it's in focus and it's showing something beyond the, hey, I'm holding a hearing aid in my hand and I'm looking right into the camera. Like, as long as that doesn't, we're good to go. You know? And
then you've got, like, you know, a pro level, like what you provide. And what do you get there that's different in your mind? Is if somebody was to bring in a professional lifestyle photographer, what are the benefits on that over working with a trusted, less experienced professional?
You're getting the experience of understanding how to capture moments from a variety of vantage points at different times with different emotions on all of the people in the photos' faces that convey a lot of different sentiments that give you the variety that you need to be able to tell every single story you want to share.
Okay. So it's that ability to be able to extract the emotion that's required in the images through understanding what the emotion was that we're looking for, and being able to have the directorial confidence to be able to lead that charge and not let the client tell you what they want, but instead, you know what the objective is. So you use the client as the vehicle to get them there.
Yeah, it's about gaining the client's trust first and foremost before anything starts, and make sure that there is a healthy rapport between the two of us, because if that doesn't exist, this is not going to work, because it will show up on every single photo. But once the rapport is set, then it goes to a heavy dose of strategy with a lot of questions, parsing out all of the important elements, the subtle nuances that make them unique, all of the different aspects of whatever the business is. And then it's being in the moment and having the confidence to be able to just tell people what to do, and then tell them to do it again, and then capture it from a variety of angles. So it's a three-headed monster.
And you achieve a lot in a short period of time by doing so as well, right? Like, you get a lot done, you get a lot of quality and quantity content from it, and it isn't such a painful experience from the subject's point of view.
That's why we have strategy. That's why there's a shot sheet that is very extensive, and that's why both parties understand exactly what the expectations are for that particular day. And when you have that shot sheet, it gives you the freedom to actually work off that shot sheet and to find those interesting little nuggets that no one even knew were going to be there. But it's because if you stay on the shot sheet and you're shooting and you see something, you don't feel like, oh my God, I'm going in a million different directions. This thing's getting out of control. What's actually happening is you are allowing yourself, by being so, this, and this, to be creative around it, and you get some really, really cool stuff. And I've gotten a lot of really cool stuff because of that approach.
Mm-hmm. How much do I like having my photograph taken?
The truth?
Yeah.
You love it about as much as going to the dentist.
Right? I despise it. I hate it. And knowing how necessary it is always the focus has been photographing things that are happening in real life, as opposed to having a photo shoot for the purpose of having a photo shoot. And what's your take on that, John? Is that the right idea? Is that the wrong idea? I just know I need these things and I know I hate it. So that's how we managed to be able to get so much done. But what's your thoughts on setting out time for a purposeful photo shoot and capturing reality?
Well, I meet in the middle, and I call it contrived authenticity, where, I mean, here's the thing. I love photographing you when things are really happening, because, I'm a television producer by trade. I've been doing it for a really long time, and I think it's a hell of a lot of fun. And it's a really interesting way for you to capture those, come with me type photos, as we discussed earlier. And it really gives a lot of energy to the images. But there is a balance because sometimes, you know, we have to capture some other things that really relate to what you do as a human being on a day-to-day basis that helps open up your audience to your life to a certain extent, to give them an entry point so that it inspires them to engage. So
Okay.
when it comes to trying to shoot these photos, it's all about figuring out, you know, what is your schedule like? It's all about working with the client's schedule. And are we going to stage some stuff and create that authentic
Yeah.
vibe based on that? Or are we going to shoot the real thing? Either way.
And what that could look like for hearing care is often there's a lot that can be shot in the real world. Yet what else there is a lot of work that happens behind closed doors that we want to be able to bring further forward into visibility of the customer base. So all that work behind the work is stuff that what you might have to do is to force it or stage it a little in order to be able to capture you completing hearing aid repairs, making phone calls out of hours, the communication that you have with manufacturer, the support and effort you put into training, the way that you navigate your software and your programming, etc. Is like all of that stuff is worthy of capturing in a slightly more planned fashion, even though you're not necessarily going to like it, but you're not necessarily looking for the facial expression. You're looking at what the hands might be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, however, we need to capture these moments that matter, that's going to resonate with people, we capture them. And it's just simply figuring out what that looks like so it doesn't feel so staged. And there
Okay.
are ways around that.
So we've talked money, and I think it's really important to have some transparency around like how much things are, because everybody can paint a poster of possibility as to how good something can be. Yet the barrier to entry for most small businesses, them believing things are just too expensive. So we've got I'm going to shoot this from my iPhone, or I got bought a camera for Christmas in 2016. I'm going to do my best to make this work type. I'm going to capture as many images as I can, self-created. That's one option, right? Next to no money. We got another option we talked about where what you could be doing is hiring local, less experienced professionals, driving the shot list, utilizing them like an extension member of the team. And you could invest, $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 over a year to be able to do so. I've told people what I spend on photography. Where's the starting point, the entry level for a privately owned independent business that turns over maybe $1 million, $1.5 million a year, has relatively high overheads, high cost of goods? How much could they get away with spending to give them this professional cutting edge photo quality that's being talked about here, and the quantity of it so that they can tell their story effectively? Like what would somebody need to pay to make that real?
Well, in my case, basically what we're looking at is when we're talking about these kind of one-off sessions where we're going to be capturing months and months and months of content in addition to the immediate need stuff to fix the infrastructure, the visual infrastructure across the touch points. We're talking anywhere from 2,500 to 5,500 for those types of sessions. And with that type of investment comes also all the strategy, as well as looking at what they're already using and kind of playing with it from there.
Yeah. So it's a serious investment, but for people who are serious about their personal brand, their corporate brand, the storytelling and creating an edge and a difference, it's less than the sale of a single pair of hearing aids.
And what's the so what in that case, what is the value of having the opportunity to bring more people in the door to create that visibility?
And the question I ask owners to think about is, how many 50-50 decisions have you lost in the last 12 months because somebody came to your web presence when they were in that decision-making phase and the story felt incomplete enough for them to either push this decision away for another day or to choose somebody other than you because of a metric they didn't see in your story that actually exists in your story? Like, how many did you lose that were 50-50? And if you feel that that is more than 2, chances are fixing your photography would go a long way towards meaning that you reduce that number in the years to come.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to, I mean, at the end of the day, we have so many competing things online that just ping pong our attention. And if you can grab their attention for 2 seconds so they'll actually stop, read, and follow through on a call to action, that is exactly what you want. Get them on the phone and bring them in.
Okay. John, final line of questioning for you. We've talked a lot about professional photography, lifestyle photography, knowing how important they are in the key moments that matter on crucial pages on your website, defining value proposition, et cetera, et cetera. Where are there the times where you should be not using beautiful professional photography?
When you're sharing more vulnerable stories, when you're talking about stuff, I mean, not necessarily in the hearing care industry, but in general, you know, we don't want to see smiling, happy people throwing up confetti, blowing balloons when they're talking about someone passing away. We don't want to hear that about when your business failed and all of a sudden you're, you know, blowing some kind of a New Year's Eve party favor, which I've seen.
Yes.
And that's why I bring this up. You know, there needs to be a real conscious effort at choosing the right photos that make sense with what you're sharing with your audience. And that's something that I definitely see a lot of people need to pay more attention to.
Okay. So if I'm thinking on that, moments that hearing care clinics can bring more of that vulnerable information in is, you know, it is timely content about how they're taking care of things like hygiene standards during the more challenging times. And, you know, they're photographing the box of 100 masks that they've gone through in a 7-day period, and that they, you know, sharing that to their social media. Or what I often find works well is a quantity of unprofessional photographs created into a montage in a professional, graphically designed kind of way that showcases a quantity of reality that you know, if you had an iPhone taking picture of every patient that you'd worked with in the last 12 months, and that sat in a montage, and you were telling the story of the fact that in the last 12 months, we've helped over 600 patients to hear better, that montage image of real iPhone pictures would be more powerful than a powerful, beautiful headshot of all of those 600 people, right? Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because that's what speaks to people, because that is the person staring at the photo, or that could be the person staring at that photo. And that's what we want.
They want to see themselves in it, or they want to see the world through your eyes.
Yeah. They want to be able to visualize it. They want to feel it and give it a little test run in their own mind before they actually follow through and go for it.
So John, we've shared a lot today. We've looked at some of the sabotaging things that people do as common mistakes with imagery. We've talked about ways that they can use it more effectively. We've talked about some ways where pro photography perhaps isn't the answer. From your point of view, where do people find out more about the power of visual storytelling? Where do they find out more about you? Perhaps where might they even be able to see some examples of your work too?
A good place to go would be my website. It's a very complicated URL. It's johndemato.com. And if people are interested in learning a little bit more about persuasive visual storytelling and how everything plays together, and understanding some of the more interesting concepts behind photography, I have a blog, and you can sign up for it right on that homepage.
Nice. Well, I would go as far to say that the easiest, simplest, and quickest way that you can differentiate your brand in the world of hearing care right now from your immediate competition is to show and not tell. And if you just spent a period of time being able to look at what are the images that you're missing right now, you'll realize how quickly you can fix that gap between what happens in your reality and what people from the outside world see about your reality right now. And the more you can do a better job of showing a beautiful version of your truth, the more you are likely to stand out from your competition and win more of the right patients for the right reasons. So John DeMato, thank you for your contributions to the Business of Hearing podcast. It has been a delight to catch up with you today. And slight little piece of sneaky secret information. For any of our Orange and Grey Inner Circle members that are listening to this podcast today, there is a possibility we might be able to create a super duper bundle of John DeMato services to help you level up your web game even more than we help you do on a weekly and monthly basis. So watch this space for that information coming real soon. John, thank you again.
Thank you again, Phil. Always a pleasure.
And there we have it. That is a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to the Business of Hearing podcast. Make sure you subscribe to be the first to know when a new episode goes live. If you're feeling kind enough to share your experience and leave us a 5-star review, it would mean the world to us. And if you want to learn more, then go to www.orange-grey.com for article, guides and trainings specifically written for high-performing hearing care businesses. We look forward to speaking to you again soon.